Regina, thank you for your time. Thank you for this interview. It's simple questions that I would like to start first asking what you could say your mission here in Brazil this time.
Yes, okay. So I'm here in Brazil in my new capacity as International Executive President of Aid to the Church in Need, ASEAN. And I've come to Brazil to meet the people here in the office, to meet some of the board members, the volunteers, and to visit a few projects. And, you know, Brazil is very special for us. I like to say it's a pioneer country. We were helping the church here from the 1960s onwards. And then we thought, maybe this could also be a country that could make donations for our projects. And I'm so happy this year we're celebrating 25 years of ASEAN in Brazil. And it's wonderful. It's been a real success story. And I've come to say thank you also. Thank you to the benefactors for all the sacrifices they make, for wanting to be part of the universal church and helping churches so far away. So that's my main purpose, yeah.
Thank you. And Regina, here in Brazil, we have a religious freedom. Yes, of course you have some problems, but we have religious freedom. When you watch to other countries, of course, we can say we have. And but you visit many countries that the Christians have no freedom to live their faith. And when we talk here in Brazil about this persecution, many people have difficulties to believe that it's happened because it's not for media, it's not so important. So these stories don't arrive here many times. But you visit and you knew people, and yesterday you told about some people in Pakistan. Could you share with us one or two stories about your contact with the persecuted Christians?
You know, through my work with ASEAN, it's been 43 years now, I've been very privileged to meet people who really have been prepared to die for their faith, even who suffer discrimination and persecution. One of the meetings that really sticks out in my mind was a few years ago in Pakistan. You know, in Pakistan, the Christians are a tiny minority and they suffer very much at the hands of radical Muslims. Not all Muslims like that, but there are some that are very strong in their persecution of Christians. And I remember we met one man by the name of Yusuf, whom had been playing cards with his Muslim neighbors. He was a Christian, and a fight broke out, and they falsely accused him of burning a page of the Quran, which is an insult to the Prophet Muhammad, and usually results in imprisonment, but also can bring the death if found guilty. And Yusuf was, after we met him, he had just been released from police custody after 3 months, and he'd been tortured and told that if he converted, they would stop it, they would let him go. But he didn't give in. And the day we met him, we asked him, but why did you not give in? You were tortured. And he looked at a crucifix on the wall behind us, looked at Christ and said, but he suffered so much more than we did. So for me, this is really very a challenge to my own faith as well. No, I've met many people over the years. I've traveled to China. I've traveled a lot in the Middle East. I was very lucky in March 2021 to travel with Pope Francis, with the delegation that went to Iraq. And for me, that was also very moving. We know that in 2020, the Christians who live in the villages of the Nineveh plain, they've been there for almost 2,000 years. They fled because the Islamic State, ISIS, was coming in to take over their villages. And they fled to northern Iraq, to Erbil, and little by little they returned to their villages. And ASEAN had a big program, Return to the Roots, which was to help the Christians to return to their villages, we repaired the houses that had been so badly damaged, some of them burned by ISIS. We repaired the churches, the priests' houses, the sisters' houses. And on that trip of Pope Francis, he went to the biggest town in the Nineveh plain, Karakosh, where most of the Christians live. And in one of the churches, the Al-Tahir church, which was restored with the help of the benefactors of ACN, he met a lady by the name of Saba, and she told him how her 10-year-old boy, little boy, his cousin, and 2 other little boys were killed by a rocket from ISIS. And then she said to Pope Francis, our faith teaches us to forgive. And this was her message, and a message that Pope Francis repeated again on the way back to Rome after the trip, that despite all this hardship and suffering and pain, we as Christians, we have to forgive. We have to seek reconciliation. And for me, she was really an amazing witness of what we believe in.
I would like to ask you, because we have a lot of organizations doing good things in the world. And but why the people need to help ACN? Why choose ACN to help? What's the difference of ACN?
I think ACN is quite a unique organization because, well, first of all, we help very much in the pastoral field, in the field of evangelization. Many other agencies help for development, which is also very necessary. It's necessary to dig wells, to build clinics, but it's also necessary to build up the soul and to spread the faith, to give people hope through the faith. And that's one of the things that ACN does. We also very much concentrate on helping persecuted Christians. And I think what's very special about ACN is we have a unity of prayer. We ask our benefactors to pray for our project partners, and our project partners pray for our benefactors. This comes together, this chain of prayer, if you like. And I think in very difficult situations, it's only prayer that can help. So this is maybe what makes us a bit different from other organizations, and really full belief in providence. When we promise funding for projects, the money hasn't arrived yet, and really I have rarely experienced a situation where the funds didn't come in. So this is what ACN is.
Yeah. And what do you think it's the mission of ACN for the next years in this world changing every time with war, with after a pandemic time? What's our mission for future?
Sadly, the world doesn't change that much, and what we see today is more and more people are being persecuted for their faith. I think in 165 countries, if I remember correctly. So I think the work of ACN, the tasks that ACN has to face are not going to go away very quickly. We have situations of authoritarian governments who make life very, very difficult for Christians. There, for example, I think of India. We still have countries that still have the communist system, like China, where there are very, very severe restrictions on Christians. And alarmingly for us, we see more and more radical Muslims who are moving into areas where this situation was not there before, and that their targets are very often Christians. And here I'm thinking we see a spreading of this in particular in Africa. If we think of northern Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, northern Mozambique, where this was not the situation before. I remember a bishop in Benin telling me in the north of Benin, the Muslims and the Christians used to live very well together. The Muslims would help the Christians build their chapels. And now there's a radical influence coming in from outside, which is very much determined on driving out the Christians. So I think for the future, this is going to be a major concern of ACN, how to help the Christians to survive. Sometimes it means giving emergency help, but also how to strengthen them in their faith, that they can keep their faith in despite of all this persecution or discrimination.
Okay. And here in Brazil, what do you see the mission of ACN and the hopes for Brazil?
So as I said, 25 years of ACN in Brazil. I believe there's still a lot that we can do. In ACN, we concentrate a lot on helping in the Amazon region, the Northeast, which is very dry and also very poor, and also very much in the peripheries of the big cities, in the favelas. This is also in response to the appeal of Pope Francis to help in the peripheries, where many people are going into the big cities now more and more and living in very poor conditions. And we want to help the church to be present, to evangelize. I've seen some of these favelas now on my trip in Brazil, and I'm very impressed by the priests, religious, the members of religious communities, ecclesiastical communities, who live with the people in the favelas and try to give them hope through the gospel, through the faith. And I believe that it's a huge task. It's really, so I can see that ACN will have to continue to do this for many years to come. No? The Amazonas, for example, the priests who can only, their life, their missionary work is along the river, and maybe sometimes 70 communities to visit. That's where ACN often helps with a boat then. The means of transport elsewhere, maybe in the Northeast, it's to give a car to the priests or to the religious who have huge territories to cover. And in the favelas, it's very often little chapels or catechetical material to do with the people living there. Also the upkeep of the missionaries, because the local population try to help as much as they can, but it's really not enough. And of course, helping in Brazil, you still have vocations, which is very good news. And so we're very happy also to support the formation of future priests and the ongoing formation of priests who are already ordained, because this is also very important.
Yeah. And here in Brazil, our benefactors, most part of them, they are not rich people. Many times people, really poor people, but they do some sacrifices to help us. Which words you have for our benefactors in Brazil?
You know, I'm very impressed by the benefactors in Brazil, because I know that many of them come from very modest means. They don't have a lot, and they make a huge sacrifice. And when I visit our project partners in other parts of the world, I tell them about our benefactors in Brazil, about the great sacrifice they make. It's really the widow's mite, like we read about in the gospel. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank our benefactors here. It makes a big difference, it really does. And I know it's not just the money they're giving, but they are also praying for our project partners. So I thank them, and I encourage them to keep up this mission, especially to think of the church outside Brazil and the persecuted church, especially.
Thank you. And I don't know if you have something that I didn't ask, but some message that you would like to say,
no.
Please.
Maybe, yeah. You know, sometimes we could become disheartened by the many challenges. But when we see the success of our work, of the project work that we do, I think this is very encouraging. And one of those big projects that we've been doing since 1979 is our Child's Bible. God speaks to his children. And I believe it exists now in 193 languages, maybe 50 million copies. And I believe it's very popular in Brazil, where we've even had it translated into some of the local languages of the Indígena, maybe languages where nothing was printed before. So I think we have to also look at the success. And the success could also be the boat for the priest who's along the riverbanks of the Amazonas. You know, in Africa, it's bicycles for catechists. In Vietnam, it's motorcycles for the sisters. And building little chapels in the far corner of northeast India. And when you see the people who used to sit under a tree to have mass in the rain and the sun, and you see them having their own place to worship, then I think, yes, this is what our benefactors do. They make a big difference.
Thank you, Regina. Thank you very much.
I'm very happy. Thank you to do this. Thank you.